Islam is not a race. Now this seems rather obvious, doesn't it? But believe it or not, there are a few out there, I found exclusively Muslim so far, that insist that Islam is a race and that Muslims are a member of this race. Well, maybe not directly, but the folks in question will attempt to rebut anti-Islamic arguments by holding that being against Islam constitutes being a racist. And the idea behind this line of thinking is rather obvious to me. That is, to piggyback anti-Islamic remarks onto the stigma of racism. Playing the race card, so it is said, is often used to discredit or defame someone's character. Sometimes this is done justifiably, and other times it isn't. One thing for certain is that the U.S. has come a very long way in progression away from racist ideals. Now, I'm not saying that racism doesn't still exist. It certainly does. But to be labeled a racist today is far more damaging than to have been labeled one a few decades ago. And because of the damage one receives associated with being called a racist, this is the angle by which Muslims attempt to discredit people that criticize Islam. Most people don't want to be labeled a racist, and if the issue pops up, they usually find themselves having to defend or explain how they really aren't racist. In effect, attributing anti-Islamic views to racism is a shrewd tactic used to silence people that speak out against Islam. To be clear, though, the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines racism as a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Now, the key word here is inherent, which means existing in someone or something as a permanent and inseparable element, quality, or attribute. Having said that, no ideology qualifies as a racial trait. It doesn't matter if you're a Muslim, a Christian, a communist, or whether or not you subscribe to holistic medicinal practices. Your belief system is not an inherent trait of your being, and subsequently is not a factor in your race. Therefore, disliking someone based upon their belief system is not a racist perspective. I don't have to respect your religion any more than I respect your choice of clothes, music, favorite sports teams, or politicians. While I believe that all races are equal, and this has been proven time and time again, I don't believe that all ideologies are, and it is our personal choices, our different ways of thinking, and our varied level of understanding of the things we both support and oppose that make some people better than others. But in regard to Islam and racism, I will say flat out that I disagree with Muslims and look down upon their way of thinking. It doesn't matter if you're of Middle Eastern descent, or an Asian or a European Muslim. I will disagree with you all the same. And on the other hand, if you're an atheist, I won't like you more because you're a white atheist, or like you less because you're a black atheist. You see, race isn't a factor, rather your belief system and how much we have in common in our ideals that wins my approval or warrants my disapproval. As expected, a few of my subscribers that joined are Muslims, as the bulk of my videos criticize Christianity. Many of my Muslim subscribers have felt obliged to subscribe and post on the topic, often praising me for my criticism of Christianity. But when my video, Boycott Islam, Don't Buy Their Oil, was made, I've had these same subscribers call me a racist for my anti-Islamic stance. One of these is YouTube user Voice of Nation, which took it upon themselves to cite that I was a racist for having views contradictory to religion, yet all the while was cheering me on while I debated Christianity. In short, what they're really saying is that it's racist to oppose Islam, but not racist to oppose Christianity. In truth, however, opposing any religion is not racist in nature, but that doesn't stop Muslims from trying to attack those that criticize their beliefs by placing this label upon them. This user also made the preposterous claim that there is no such thing as race, which is obviously untrue. If it weren't, any couple could give birth to a child of any race, because since race doesn't exist, there are not determining factors to race. I find this notion highly insulting to those that have struggled due to racism, especially African Americans that fought for civil rights in the 1960s and which are still fighting today. To belittle a minority's racist position by saying that their race doesn't even exist to begin with, meanwhile they're facing daily injustices because of the race, is as ignorant as it is absurd. These people struggle not because their race is inferior, however someone in power decided that it was. And again, your race doesn't determine who you are or what you're capable of. Your ideals, your standards, your way of thinking is the biggest determining factor in who you are. And people of all races have different values and ideologies. The majority of Muslims are of Middle Eastern descent, but it is not their bloodlines which are at fault, rather their social perspectives. If you share these perspectives, your race doesn't matter at all to me, because it is your perspective that I draw issue with, and not your genetic makeup.